The storm outside pounded the glass walls of the skyscraper like heavy fists, rattling the evening silence that loomed over the nearly empty corporate floor. Most employees had already left, their bright computer screens replaced by darkness and tiny blinking lights. Only a handful remained, scattered across the building like ghosts working overtime. In the executive office at the very top, the city lights glimmered through the panoramic windows, casting reflections on the polished floors. The CEO, Ava Lennox, stood there trembling, clutching her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. A cold sweat slid down her spine, her breathing shallow as distant sirens grew closer. She pressed herself against the window as if she could disappear into the night. In a barely audible voice filled with dread, she whispered to the empty room, "They're here for me." Just down the hall, a single-dad janitor named Ethan Miles pushed his cleaning cart, humming slowly, unaware that within the next few seconds everything about his life and hers would change forever. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the way life sometimes surprises us in the most dramatic ways, make sure to like this video, subscribe, comment, and share to spread more meaningful stories. The building's silence shattered as the elevator doors exploded open with urgency, followed by loud footsteps. Ava heard them, stiffening like a prisoner awaiting judgment. She rushed to her desk, frantically rummaging through papers as if she might find a miracle in the chaos. Her heart hammered so violently she thought she might collapse. In her mind, years of hidden decisions, sealed documents, and private deals all came flooding back like a tsunami she could no longer outrun. She knew exactly who would be in that elevator. She knew this moment would eventually arrive, though she begged for more time. Every powerful executive expects a reckoning one day, but no one imagines it happening on a stormy night with their nerves shattered like glass. The footsteps grew louder. Ava's breath started to hitch, and when she turned, she noticed Ethan quietly wiping the glass wall next to her office. His brown hair was messy, his uniform faded, his posture exhausted, but there was calmness around him, like the eye of a storm. He paused when he saw her shaking, unsure why a CEO would look as though she were about to burst into tears. He wondered if he should say something or just keep working. Then a thunderous knock shook her office door. Ava squeezed her eyes shut. She whispered again, this time more broken, "They're here for me." Ethan frowned. He slowly stepped toward her, confused but concerned. She barely noticed him until the door swung open. Two men in dark suits stood there, holding documents. They weren't police, but they might as well have been. They were federal corporate investigators, faces Ava had seen before only in cautionary conversations with fellow CEOs. The taller man cleared his throat, his tone cold and official. The words spilled with icy weight. They were here to seize evidence tied to an investigation involving Lennox Industries. Words like liability, corruption, misappropriation, and corporate fraud hung in the air like daggers. Ava felt a dizzy wave, gripping the edge of her desk. Ethan, unsure if he should walk away, simply remained where he stood. The taller agent asked Ava for access to archived board meeting records and financial documentation. She barely nodded, her hands shaking uncontrollably. He studied her closely, then pointed at Ethan. He asked who the janitor was and whether he had access to private areas. That question should have been routine, yet Ethan felt suddenly judged, as if his uniform somehow made him guilty by association. Ava opened her mouth to answer, but no sound came out. Ethan calmly responded that he had limited access only to cleaning stations and permitted rooms. The agent walked toward him, clipboard ready, and asked for his full name. Ethan swallowed, not expecting to be interrogated at work over something he didn't even understand. When he quietly said, "Ethan Miles," Ava froze. Her face drained of color so instantly that the agents thought she might faint. Her lips parted as if she had seen a ghost. She whispered his name again, stunned, then slowly lowered herself into her chair as if her legs could no longer support her weight. She stared at him like the past had finally come to claim her. Ethan hesitated, confused and uncomfortable beneath her intense gaze. 15 seconds earlier, she had been terrified of strangers arriving to tear her life apart. Now, she was more terrified of who the janitor in front of her really was for the next few minutes, as agents demanded files and searched through locked cabinets. Ava could barely focus. Her mind drifted backward through more than a decade, to a courtroom filled with reporters, cameras, and a scandal that nearly destroyed her. She remembered a young man standing firm, risking his future to expose a corporate injustice that her father's company had been hiding. She remembered someone courageous, who vanished afterward, a whistleblower, a fighter, a name carved into cold headlines, Ethan Miles, the man who challenged Lennox Holdings back when Ava's father still controlled everything. But the boy back then had been confident, fiery, fighting for employees wronged by corporate greed. That young man's testimony triggered a chain reaction that reshaped the industry, brought laws into action, and cost the Lennox empire millions. That man disappeared after the trial, chased out by threats, lawsuits, and blacklisting. People said he vanished, changed his name, or died. But here he was, standing before her with a mop bucket and calloused hands, a single dad doing janitorial work to survive. Ava felt sick, realizing that the laws her company now followed were built on his suffering. And here she was again, face to face with consequences. She had inherited her father's empire and its buried sins. She had tried to fix things, make reforms, change corporate culture, but never once had she apologized to the man who paid the price for exposing it. She watched as Ethan quietly wiped fingerprints off a table, unaware of her inner storm. She wondered what his life had become. She glanced at his ID badge and noticed a small sticker of 2 smiling kids taped to its corner. A father, alone, working nights. The past weighed heavier. The agents finished their warnings and ordered Ava to send the required documents to their office within 48 hours. She nodded blankly. Once they were gone, the thunder outside quieted, as if the storm itself paused to hear what came next. Ethan began to leave, thinking it was none of his business. But Ava stood and said his name again, softer, almost pleading. He turned back, brow furrowed. She found herself unable to form the apology she owed him. Years of regret tangled like barbed wire inside her chest. She wanted to say she was sorry. She wanted to thank him. She wanted to cry. Instead, she asked something that shocked even herself. She asked how his kids were doing. Ethan blinked, surprised she noticed the sticker. He hesitated, unsure if this was small talk or mockery. He spoke carefully, saying his twins were doing well in school, that he worked nights to care for them during the day, that life was hard but they laughed a lot, and that their mother died when they were toddlers. He didn't speak dramatically, he spoke like someone used to carrying pain without expecting sympathy. Ava's heart twisted. She didn't know what devastated her more, the burden he carried alone, or the way he spoke as if no one had ever cared enough to listen. She wanted to help him, but she knew after what happened, anything she offered might feel like pity or payback, or worse, manipulation. Yet watching him during the following weeks, something changed internally. She saw how he worked silently, helped other janitors with heavy loads, repaired things he didn't have to, treated everyone with humbleness and warmth. He wasn't bitter, he wasn't angry, he was simply doing his best to raise his children. The federal investigation tightened around the company, but Ava began taking real risks, not to save herself, but to truly change the culture her father had built. She fired corrupt board members, removed predatory policies, and hired an independent ethics team. She didn't do it for image. She did it because for the first time, she understood the cost of ignoring injustice. Ethan's quiet presence reminded her of everything her past had broken. Weeks later, when the agents returned, they were stunned to find major reforms already underway. They questioned her motives, but she didn't mention Ethan. She didn't use him as a shield or a story. She simply said, it was long overdue. One evening, as he cleaned late as usual, Ava approached him. She finally gathered the courage to thank him, not as a CEO, but as a human being. She told him the truth, that she remembered, that his courage saved thousands of employees in the industry over the years. He listened, uncertain how to react. She said she admired the man he became, the father he was, and the quiet strength that never needed applause. That night, the storm was gone. The city lights reflected softly on the windows. For the first time, Ethan didn't feel invisible. A few days later, she offered him a new position. Not a reward, not charity, but an opportunity that fit his skills from years ago. a role managing internal ethics, oversight, and employee rights. He nearly refused, thinking he wasn't qualified anymore. But she reminded him that he had shaped laws without a title once, and that experience never fades. The job would offer stability, flexible hours, and a future his kids deserved. Ethan accepted, not for money or revenge, but for the chance to make sure no one else would suffer like he did. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in integrity, redemption, and unexpected second chances, please like the video, share it with others, comment below, and subscribe so we can bring more meaningful stories into the world. Before the story ends, drop a comment. What would you have done in Ethan's place? Today, Ethan walks through the same building, not with a mop, but with a purpose. His name no longer hides. His past no longer haunts him. And the CEO who once feared justice now fights beside him to protect it. Not every story of power and pain ends in hate. Sometimes the past returns not to destroy, but to rebuild. Sometimes the person you think is invisible is the one who saves your world. And sometimes, the one who whispers they're here for me learns that the greatest reckoning is not punishment at all, but redemption.